It's Warwick here, and hope you guys are having a great Sunday and a great weekend. I'm interested in chatting about propolis. So we get a lot of questions about propolis, and I think it's a good thing to just chat about it and discuss what actually makes propolis. What is its compounds? What is it made out of? And a couple of other things. We've got five topics I'm going to talk about today. So it's going to be what is it, why do bees need it or use it, and then what to do with it, how to harvest it, and what can be used to benefit humans, right? So let's get right to it. So, what is propolis made of? Well, essentially, it's usually discolored. It's got different colors in the hive. So, it's usually found under the lid, on the frames, even at the entrance of the hive. In fact, there'll be a microscopic coating around the entire hive and every piece of hive body internally in the hive. And what it's made of is plant resins. About 50% of it is made of plant resins, which is flavonoids and phenolic phenolic acid. What? Phenolic acids. There we go. And esters, and then about 30% of that is also waxes and fatty acids, which is partly from the plants as well as from beeswax. 10% essential oils, 5% protein, which is likely from pollen, and then about 5% of that is also trace minerals. So it's pretty cool. It's interesting to note that majority of propolis is obviously it's derived from plant resins, right? So it's very similar. So when you go to check propolis from different plants or even different sources, there's a lot of similarities. However, it's not uniform. Okay, so it's not a uniform material, and that's simply because there are slightly different compounds and also strengths of different things that vary from one set of propolis to another, including the color. So you can go anywhere from a yellow, a mustardy yellow, through to a green, through to even black if it's really old. And then you can also get just myriads of those different kind of colors between those two. So a lot of beekeepers, what do beekeepers do with this? Well, essentially, a lot of beekeepers actually don't do anything with it, unfortunately. Um, but it's got some amazing properties. Now, what does it do for the bees? So the bees, because of the properties, which we're going to discuss a little bit later, I think that's point number three. Um, point number four, perhaps, is that they coat all of the hive, right, internally, because of the properties that it actually has. They coat the inside of the hive, they coat all the frames, they coat under the lid, they cover any gap. They also put a welcome mat at the front of the hive. So whenever you see your hive entrances, and they're dark black or brown, or whatever the case is, it's almost impossible not for that to be there. The main reason that's there is that it's whenever the bees return from the wild and out from foraging, essentially what ends up happening is they end up getting back from the hive. Their feet are dirty. They've been walking around different places, and when they get back to the hive, the welcome mat lets them in, and it coats their feet with this propolis, microscopic propolis layer. And then it's almost like when we get back to the house and you do like a disinfection, if there was mad cow disease or something like that, and then you can go into the hive. So this is essentially a lot of what the bees use propolis for. They also cover gaps. In the wild, you're going to find that bees tend to have what's called a propolis gate at the front of their hive, and this could be massive. It could be the size of the entrance with a little small hole in it, um, covering the entrance of a what you call it, a cavity in a tree, for example. So this is propolis, and that's what the bees use it for. So let's move on to what to do with it. Okay, what do you do with it? Well, essentially, what you can either scrape it off. You can either scrape it off the frames, or you can or from underneath the lid. You're not going to obviously clean the front of the hive because that's bees property, etc. And it's microscopic types of layer there anyway. You can't really harvest that, but you can take it off through using propolis trays. So we've got propolis trays at Beware, and or we sell them when we have them in stock. And what happens is you put that under the lid of the hive, and the bees will then start creating propolis inside that because it creates a little bit of a gap. It creates a gap between the holes. It also creates a gap between the lid and the frames and the actual hive body itself. And so what ends up happening is they build inside that gap where the propolis tray sits. Now, what ends up happening is that how often can you harvest this? Well, essentially, it really depends on what time of year it is and what access the bees have to largely to plant resins, and some towards what else is happening in the hive. So if they're a young hive, they're not likely to focus on building propolis much. They're going to be building beeswax and comb. If they're an established hive, which means that they've been around, they've got about 8-9 frames in the brood chamber, then the likelihood is that there is a potential for them to build propolis. However, if you're going to put a propolis tray in there, just remember they are going to you sort of delegating resources towards propolis production versus other things, which could be like more brood production, more honey production, etc., etc. So, what are the benefits for us in terms of doing that? Well, as beekeepers, we are able to harvest the propolis and then use it in other products, in byproducts. But before we move on to that, I just want to discuss the propolis trays. So what happens when you take a propolis tray off? If it's full, you take it off. You should be able to get anywhere between 30 grams after 2 or 3 months, or up to even 300 grams over a year. And that is going to vary from hive to hive and location to location. But what you can do then is you take the propolis tray, you put it in your freezer, and once it's frozen after a few hours, you can take it out, put newspaper down or plastic down on the floor or on a surface, and you're going to literally just tap a little bit and twist a little bit, and the frozen propolis will fall off onto the bag or onto the paper, and you can collect there. What are you going to do with it after that? Well, you can dissolve it in ethanol, ethanol alcohol. So that's like 80 proof alcohol, and you leave it in the alcohol for at least a number of weeks. I would say up to 3 weeks, and every day you're going to shake it. Don't leave it in the sun, but leave it in a warm place. Give it a shake, and then you'll see that obviously over a period of 3 weeks, the alcohol will change color, and then just sieve it afterwards. And then that now can be used as a tincture. For example, you can also put it in some water and distill it a little bit, and then have that gargle that in your mouth for sore throats, tonsillitis, for example, as well as anything to do with the mouth, mostly, but also on wound treatment, for example, as well. Obviously, check with your doctor if you have a wound. But that's one of the best uses for it. In fact, it was actually used as a topical cream in Anglo-Boer War, which was at the end of the 1890s, 1995, 1895, etc. And it's phenomenal. What are the other medical benefits with propolis? Well, essentially, it's power packed. Okay, it's antibacterial, it's antifungal, antiviral, it's anti-tumor, which has been proven and studied, and it also creates local pain relief, so it's a local anesthetic. It's anti-inflammatory. It also is a spasmolytic. In other words, it helps the stomach if you've got a pain in the stomach. It also is really good for gastric ulcers, and most recently is also being used for cosmetics, treatment of pimples, acne, that sort of thing. So there's been a couple of other research done about cancer. I think breast cancer is also one of the things that has been looked at in terms of studies. But those are the main things. Largely anything to do with the mouth, sore throat, sinus, and also topical treatment onto wounds would be really good, with regards to including it in a salve or a balm or a wound cream, as well as if you're going to mix it with anything else that's sort of an existing product, you could mix in the phenyl alcohol with something. Sorry, not phenyl, ethyl alcohol with that. And then finally, In terms of what can you do with it after that? Well, tinctures, we sell tinctures, propolis tinctures, which can be taken for a variety of reasons already mentioned. And I mean, you can take about a 300 grams, 400 grams worth of propolis and put it in a 1 liter bottle of ethyl alcohol. As I say, about three to 4 weeks later, shake it every day. You can then bottle that off into little 5 and 10 ml jars. And then, as long as your label's correct and all that sort of thing, you can then sell that as a propolis tincture, and that would more or less create a 30% concentrated propolis tincture. And as I said already earlier on in the conversation, you can use it largely for wound treatment and for um, anything to do with the mouth sores, toothache, ulcers, sore throats, that sort of thing. So yeah, excellent. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you guys have a great Sunday. If you have any more questions about propolis, something I haven't answered, or experiences that you have had, I usually just roll it up actually when I get it. Roll it up in a little ball and I'll pop it in my mouth directly. So that's how I use propolis most of the time, especially over the winter period. I think it would probably it could be a potential immune booster right now with the whole pandemic thing going on. I mean, it's a tiny little ball that I'll just roll up and put it in my mouth and then swallow it. You could chew it as well. It's, as I say, really good for toothache or any infections in the mouth, that sort of thing. And you could potentially, if you have some serious, a small wound or a small cut that's fairly deep and nasty, you could actually probably malleable. It's quite malleable. It's soft. You could probably pack it into the wound itself, and that would disinfect the wound, and it would also give you some pain relief as well. All right, cool guys. Thanks very much. Have a great day and enjoy your Sunday. And look forward to doing some more lives and vibes soon. So subscribe here. Check out other videos in the video section on Facebook, and we'll also be putting this on our YouTube channel. Thanks, guys. Ciao.